Near mint condition, the home of collected editions. Oh my gosh, look at that panel of Batman. You have the absolute, you have the Deluxe DC Comics firing on all cylinders. How's it going, all you minties? Uncanny Omar here from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions, and join me today for my overview of The Flash by Grant Morrison and Mark Millar, the Deluxe Edition from DC Comics. So let's go ahead and get started. And welcome back, everybody. Now, what we're looking at here is the latest deluxe edition from DC Comics, and they decided to put out The Flash by Grant Morrison and Mark Millar in Deluxe Edition. Now, this book was in the catalog a couple of years ago and was supposed to come out sometime in 2023, early 2024. But then they canceled it. It was pulled out of the catalog. That's why I always tell people to make sure that it's solicited before you place a pre-order in. But then it got resolicited, and here we finally are with the latest deluxe edition, The Flash by Grant Morrison and Mark Millar, the deluxe edition, the new DC Bullet logo. Everything old is new, baby. And then the back cover here, and the retail price of this book being $49.99. So this has previously been released before in a series of 2 trade paperbacks. It's been previously released before in 1 thick trade paperback, this one here, the Grant Morrison and Mark Millar trade paperback. Now, while I have this here with the dust jacket on, where does this fit into the reading order of The Flash? Well, believe it or not, it goes right after Mark Waid Omnibus Volume 2, however, Volume 3 isn't out yet. And as I've stated before, I don't think the stuff in this book is going to be collected in Volume 3. I think that will be just Mark Waid. So it belongs here. Hopefully there will be a Mark Waid Omnibus Volume 3. And if you're getting the trade paperbacks, it goes right after Volume 6 and before Volume 7. But the spines match, I like that. I like that they thought ahead. Now, underneath this dust jacket, we have this piece by Steve Lytle, who also did the cover. And then the bio on the creators here, like Grant Morrison, Mark Millar, Paul Ryan, John Nyberg, and Tom McGraw, and Gaspar Saladino, and Steve Lytle. And here's this piece by Steve Lytle. The spine of the book having the reverse Flash colors. And speaking of colors, what's going on over there? The Flash joined the Green Lantern, Blue Lantern, Orange Lantern Corps. Something in one of the stories in here predates those different color spectrums from Green Lantern. And I'll talk a little bit about it when we open up the book. So let's actually do that. Let's open up the book and talk about the stories found in here. And show off this artwork and see what extras they have, and if it's more than the trade paperback. Alright, let's go ahead and crack this deluxe edition open. You have these end sheets here, and again, the multicolor Flash, yet again. Oh, I like that, with the yellow tone on top of this panel. The Flash by Grant Morrison and Mark Millar. Grant Morrison, of course, Mark Millar. But then you also have Chuck Dixon and Ron Marz, who write the crossover issues in here. Paul Ryan taking the top billing, but also Ron Wagner, Pop Man, who finishes out this run, Paul Paultier, Ariel Olivetti, Joshua Hood, just to name a few of the creators. Or pencilers, your inkers like John Nyberg and Chris Ivey, Tom McGraw doing the colors, and Lee Lufridge, and then Gaspar Saladino doing the letters. So here's your table of contents, telling you where you're going to find each of these issues, when they were originally published, and then, of course, who the cover artists were and who worked on the actual book. So one thing you're going to note is the lack of Grant Morrison in the last 3 issues, the 3-parter, The Black Flash. It's just mainly written by, or actually just written by Mark Millar. Here's your introduction from none other than Paul Cooperberg, talking about the departure of Mark Waid from the pages of The Flash and what they were going to do. And sure enough, yeah, this is the era when Grant Morrison decided they were going to come over and write The Flash, and Mark Waid was going to go over and write JLA. So a little bit of a switcheroo for a year is how long this lasted. But Grant Morrison wasn't alone. Together they brought over the Mark Millar guy, this guy, Scottish guy that was writing the Swamp Thing stories with Grant Morrison, I think this actually worked better than their work in Swamp Thing. So this collects Flash 130 to 141, as well as Green Arrow number 130, and the Green Lantern number 96. It also has the materials from the Flash 80-page Giant number 1, Secret Origins number 50, and JLA Secret Files number 1. This book has a total of 416 pages, and it kicks off with this mystery. So before going any further, just a little bit of spoilers as to what happened previously and what happens in this book, like setting up some of the story arcs in here, because really it's divided into 3 different acts. Okay, so the first story is, of course, this relationship between Wally West and Linda Park. We have established that there's other speedsters. You have Max Mercury, you've got Jay Garrick, the original Flash, the Golden Age Flash, and you've got Bart Allen. And they're all running around and trying to fight crime in this city of Keystone. Now, it's also important to know that during this time that Wally isn't really living in Keystone. He's living inside of this mansion. As a matter of fact, they go and visit him. That's after winning the lottery, of course, which can all be found in previous runs. But yeah, he's really well off during this time. There is this costume that's going around and taking over people. And whenever they see this costume, people's life's energy is drained from them, if you will. So, for example, we have this villain right here. This is the Fashioneer, who the costume takes over and, like I said, eats his life source. And once it gets rid of the person, the costume will move on to the next person. So this starts off like a murder mystery. And who is dead? None other than Wally West. That's right. Wally West is dead. The suit has killed Wally West. And what exactly happened? And how can Wally continue when it's an emergency stop and his legs are broken? Well, that's when he taps into the Speed Force and he creates a new suit, a new costume. And that will be the Speed Force suit. And of course, this suit right here that will go with, I don't want to explain what exactly it is. Is it an alien entity? Is it a ghost? Is it a magic spell? You can find out for yourself. But he ends up freeing a lot of the prisoners from Keystone Prison, and this is the suit. Very reminiscent to what the Rebirth era of Flash Wally West looked like. But that's how you kick off the first 3 issues with this. And again, Paul Ryan continuing his run on The Flash. I've always been a big fan of his work. He was the gentleman that drew a lot of the Tom DeFalco era of the Fantastic Four. We have the return of a classic villain, and I think these 2 stories right here about the Mirror Master are really kind of like a Silver Age story, and it's a little bit of a headache to read Linda's dialogue, by the way, because it's it's not only backwards, but it reads from down to up too. So if you're trying to decipher that, keep that in mind. Now, this is when something happens and Mirror Master's weapon unleashes different flashes with different colors. And while it's not exactly like the whole color spectrum with Green Lantern, it is interesting to see just how each of the different colors act a little bit different. Like you have red that might have a little bit of rage, and you have blue that is a little bit like hope. And I thought that was interesting because it does predate everything that happened in Jeff Johns' run. But this is a classic fight between 2 arch nemesis. Again, Wally living the high life. Now, this right here is one of my all-time favorite Flash issues, and this is A Day in the Life of the Flash, but it is focusing on the character of Jay Garrick, not Wally West, who is the current Flash during this time. And Jay, of course, is the original Golden Age Flash. He's coming to visit this older gentleman right here who's dying of cancer. And as it turns out, this is none other than the Thinker, one of his old nemesis. And they're having a drink together, and the Thinker's talking about how, you know, he's dying of brain cancer, and Jay perhaps has a way of saving him. So it becomes like this search, and in this one day that he has to go and find this helmet that might be able to help him. So he goes and sees his wife, he goes and does things in the office, he goes and sees Johnny Thunder. That's right, one of the original JSA members, the Justice Society members, because he's looking for this particular helmet that might be able to help him. I love this story. It really highlights who Jay Garrick is and why he's one of my favorite characters in the DC universe. And then by the time Jeff Johns gets to write him in JSA, forget it. He's an amazing character. This right here sums up exactly who Jay Garrick is. So Jay gets to fight this reverse Golden Age Flash right here. He goes to the school. He's doing all these things. And he still has enough time to get lunch with Wally and none other than Dick Grayson, Nightwing, who's undercover right now. But Captain Cold is harming citizens of Keystone. So they go and say, hey, Flash, we need you. And Jay Garrick's like, hey, sit down. I got this. You got other things to worry about. You need to slow down a little bit. I'll take care of this villain. So not only does he go off and fight against Captain Cold, but he pays the bill. And I love this line right here. He's even taking the care of the check. Man, that's who I want to be when I grow up. And that really is who Jay Garrick is. Like everybody's favorite grandpa, everybody's favorite uncle. It's the guy that everybody looks up to, including a lot of his teammates. Like you have Alan Scott here, who at this time I believe he's going as Sentinel, not the Green Lantern. But I do love the fact that he points out hey Jay, you're always hanging around the younger generation. It seems like I just hang around people our age, people that are using dentures, and you're hanging around the youth. And that's just something about Jay Garrick. He never stops. And that's what you're seeing in this day in the life. You're seeing him getting interviewed. And then, of course, does he make it in time? Does he find that helmet that he's been looking for to save the Thinker? Oh, that line by the Thinker at the very end, oh man, that really hits. And then we get the crossover. I'm so glad they included all three of the issues in here for the crossover, because when it was originally released, like as Emergency Stop, and what was the second? The Human Race, I think is what it was called. They didn't have the Green Lantern and the Green Arrow issues, and I thought that was taken away from the story. So anyway, this is just three friends trying to relax, right? You have Wally West, you've got Kyle Rayner, Green Lantern, and you've got Connor Hawke, Green Arrow. And they're legacy characters, and all three of them are just going on vacation. They're going on a cruise, and everything is going according to plan. But not really, because we're talking about superheroes trying to take a break. So, who comes crashing their party? None other than Heatwave, Hatchet, and Sonar. That's who comes crashing their party. And their whole purpose is to try to revive Dr. Polaris. So that's what this is about. And it's funny because when you read, you read The Green Lantern by Ron Marz and you read The Green Arrow by Chuck Dixon, it's very stereotypical type of crossover stories. It's a lot of fun. I really dig them. There's nothing wrong with them. But when you get to the Morrison issues, Morrison Millar issue, it's a court case. And oh man, it's actually really funny how they make fun of Dr. Polaris and his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, if you will. Yeah, very in your face about that. The Human Race is a unique story. It's a very Morrison type of story that kind of harkens back to the Silver Age. We have the death of this character right here showing up out of nowhere called G-Force. But you find out that when he was a kid, Wally West had an imaginary friend. And this imaginary friend plays a big part in this. And the imaginary friend's name is Crackle. And Crackle, as it turns out, wasn't that imaginary. He's real, maybe. And in order to save not just Earth, but another world, the Flash has to run as fast as possible. But not just him. Perhaps every other speedster and every other person on the planet. And really, this establishes just how fast the Flash is. Mark Waid, introduced the whole idea of the Speed Force, and Morrison and Millar start talking about, what you can do with the Speed Force by channeling it and making a suit out of it when your legs are broken. But now it's exactly how fast is this Flash? Where's this going to take us? So a lot of things are introduced through here. A lot of different concepts are introduced through here. The last story arc, and here's 3 issues written by Mark Millar, drawn by Pop Man. this introduces us to the Black Flash, and it's something you've probably heard of, but this is his first appearance in here. And it gives us a personification of death for the speedsters, right? Anybody that's dealt with the Speed Force. And this time around, it's coming after Wally West, but not before taking some precious things away from him, if you will. And Wally kind of loses it. He just kind of goes on hiatus from being a superhero and decides to take a break while the other speedsters are trying to figure out, what this Black Flash wants. And what it wants Wally. So it's one of those characters that you'll be seeing in other DC comics. And this is really cool how different people have gotten lost into the Speed Force, and Death comes looking for you, right? Very similar to the character of Death in the Sandman universe, or the Black Racer in the Fourth World. So it's another personification of death, if you will, in the DC comics. So something we've seen before, but now it is exclusive to the Speedsters. And then we get a couple of backup stories here. This one is very meta about Mark Millar meeting with Wally West. This is from the 80-page Giant. Then we have Secret Origin story. This is really sweet. It's kind of a kid telling the story of The Flash of Two Worlds. This is by Grant Morrison, and Mike Parobeck is the artist. But there is a little bit of a twist as to who is enamored by Barry Allen and Jay Garrick as the Flash and meeting. Oh, love it. I thought it was such a sweet story. We do have the connecting covers here for the crossover. And then the original art gallery. Something really unique is in here. Like, it's kind of crazy. I've never seen... I do see it sometimes when DC does Omnis, but I haven't seen it in an oversized hardcover. So we have original artwork. So this book, again, has 416 pages, while the trade paperback has 356 pages. So it has a lot more pages. It has a lot of original art in here that was not collected in the trade paperback. The trade paperback actually just ends with... I think, the backup story with Mark Millar, and then the page here from the Secret Files. Whereas this will give you extras. And that's awesome. Character designs. And this is really cool. Letter pages. But the letter pages from issues 130 to 134 are not collected in here because they have to do with previous issues that were not done by Mark Millar nor Grant Morrison. But that's awesome that letter pages are collected here. I don't really see that in oversized hardcovers. I really hope that this is now the trend for DC to continue doing, because I'd love to see more letter pages. I'd love for Marvel to do letter pages in modern Omnis too. And then the bio and the creators and the flashes and end sheets. Let's look at the binding. 416 pages. You can see the page bunches down there, but the way that it lays over, I'm trying to find a splash page. It is using this new satin paper stock, so there's a little bit of bleed through happening. We've seen better, but we've seen worse too. And I will say it does have a hard time staying open unless you really hold it down. And that's due to all that glue they're using down there. But that's the way it kind of folds over, or lays over, not folds over. Let's actually look at the covers here. I think that will give you an idea. So after this, there we go. So this kind of gives you an idea of just how much gutter loss there is. So you do have to hold it down, but even when you're holding it down, it's not the whole picture. You can tell by the missing part of the R's right there. But that is it. That is the Flash by Grant Morrison and Mark Millar Deluxe Edition. And that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing this deluxe edition, don't forget to check out our sponsors. CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content, the page count, and build of this book. In the comments down below, let let me know if you are picking this up, if you've never read these stories, and you're going through your journey of Flash by reading the omnibus editions, and this is the one that you're missing out. Or if you've already got the trade paperbacks, both of the 2 volumes and then the thicker volume, and you're deciding to upgrade. I'd love to know all those comments down below. If you have any questions, leave that down below, or those below. There we go. And that's it, everybody. Stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.